Apple's first foldable iPhone is finally starting to look real, but it's probably not the device most people pictured, and that might actually be the best thing about it. Instead of trying to clone Samsung's tall, skinny Galaxy Z Fold, the leaked iPhone Fold goes in a very different direction. Shorter, wider, more like a tiny iPad mini that just happens to fold in half and fit in your pocket. With trial production reportedly underway and the design said to be close to final, this isn't just another concept. This is Apple quietly shaping what its first foldable phone will really be. So what exactly is Apple doing differently? And why could that be a huge win for everyday users? Let's start with the shape, because that's the first thing that stands out. All the credible leaks point to a compact, wider, and shorter design that immediately calls to mind the Google Pixel Fold rather than the Galaxy Z Fold. When the iPhone Fold is closed, it's expected to look and feel more like a regular, slightly chunky iPhone, not a tall remote control that you have to stretch your thumb across just to hit the top of the screen. That matters because it changes how you use the phone every single day. A shorter, wider cover display should feel more natural for one-handed texting, quickly checking notifications, browsing social feeds, snapping a photo without opening the full tablet view. You won't be fighting an awkwardly narrow screen just to reply to a message. Then, when you open it up, the iPhone Fold is rumored to reveal an inner display closer in feel to an iPad mini. In other words, more like a small tablet than a stretched-out phone. That aspect ratio is perfect for reading, split-screen apps, watching videos, and serious multitasking. Instead of feeling like a compromise between phone and tablet, it leans into being both. A normal phone when shut, a mini iPad when open. It's a very Apple move. Start by asking, what's the most comfortable shape for actual human hands? Instead of, how do we cram the tallest display possible into this design? Of course, foldables aren't just about screens. They live or die on durability. This is where Apple is reportedly being much more conservative and methodical than many early players in the foldable space. Leaks suggest the iPhone Fold's hinge is being engineered around long-term reliability. The goal, a robust mechanism that can handle years of opening and closing without developing wobble, crunchiness, or misalignment. One key detail that keeps coming up is how tightly the two halves of the phone are expected to close. Instead of a big wedge-shaped gap when folded, the iPhone Fold reportedly closes with a minimal gap, giving it a cleaner, more premium profile. Less chance for dust and debris to creep in. Better protection for the inner display when in your pocket or bag. On top of that, Apple is said to be testing a matte finish across the frame and back. That might sound like a small detail, but it goes a long way in daily use. Fewer fingerprints, less glare, a more secure grip, and a look that stays clean instead of constantly smudged. Combined with Apple's usual attention to materials and tolerances, the iPhone Fold is clearly being positioned as something you can use all day without babying. Where Apple really starts to separate itself from Samsung and Google, though, is in ecosystem integration, and one feature in particular stands out: MagSafe. If the leaks are accurate, the iPhone Fold will be the first major foldable with full MagSafe support. That one decision instantly plugs Apple's foldable into magnetic wireless chargers, snap-on battery packs, wallets and stands, car mounts and desktop docks. A huge existing ecosystem of third-party accessories for anyone already. Using MagSafe on a regular iPhone, this is a big deal. You could go from a standard iPhone to an iPhone Fold and keep using most of the same chargers and mounts, instead of starting over from scratch with a completely different accessory ecosystem. And it plays directly to Apple's biggest strength, the way all its products and accessories quietly lock together into a single cohesive experience. A foldable that just drops into that world without feeling like a weird experimental outlier is a very different proposition from most Android foldables, which often feel like standalone gadgets rather than parts of a larger system. Visually, Apple also seems determined not to go down the route of massive over-the-top camera humps. The iPhone Fold is rumored to stick with a minimalist camera design, staying in line with Apple's usual approach. Clean camera housing. No huge, protruding modules dominating the back. A layout that looks intentional and understated. That doesn't mean the cameras themselves will be basic. If Apple's recent phones are any indication, you can expect Strong main sensor performance, excellent color and exposure consistency, powerful computational photography, solid video, quality and stabilization. What's different is that Apple wants the iPhone Fold to look like part of the iPhone family, not like a science fiction prototype with giant camera bubbles slapped on the back. Behind the scenes, the most important development isn't a spec or a feature. It's the simple fact that the iPhone Fold has reportedly moved into trial production. That shift from pure concept to early manufacturing is where Apple starts to answer the hard questions. Can the hinge survive years of real-world usage? Does the fold line on the display stay minimal over time? How does the device handle repeated drops, twists, and pocket pressure? Are there any heat, flex, or component issues unique to this design? Trial production is where Apple dials. In everything from hinge resistance and closing feel to the exact thickness of protective layers on the inner display, it's also where they decide what needs to be reinforced, what can be made thinner, and what trade-offs are worth it for long-term reliability, and this is where Apple's strategy becomes very clear. While other brands race to be first, with foldables, and stumbled through fragile hinges, creasing, and durability problems, Apple seems comfortable being late as long as it means getting the fundamentals right. Their goal with the iPhone Fold isn't to show off wild numbers or specs on a slide. It's to launch a foldable that feels familiar to iPhone users, trustworthy as a daily driver, deeply connected to the Apple ecosystem. Instead of saying, "We have the biggest screen," or "We have the most lenses," Apple appears to be leaning into a very specific value proposition. A comfortable ergonomic shape, a durable hinge with a tight minimal gap fold, a matte finish that stays clean in real use, MagSafe and full ecosystem support. A camera system that looks restrained but performs at a flagship level compared to the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold series, which still favors a taller, narrower design. The iPhone Fold is shaping up as the more tablet-like and ergonomic option. Versus something like the Google Pixel Fold, Apple's advantage won't necessarily be in raw form factor, but in everything that surrounds it: accessories, software polish, and long-term support.